The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, episode 135.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Making so. Surrender is not an option.
Attention crew of the Enterprise, this is James Kirk.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We would have helped you get home if you had asked. That's who Starfleet is.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery, the penultimate episode called There Is a Tide. Joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
I'm so glad we have only one episode left this season.
And Father Cory Stika. Hi, Father Cory.
Hi, Dom. And when I looked at this episode or the title, I thought it was There Is a Time, and I was thinking of Ecclesiastes, there's a time for all things under the sun. or the birds turn, whichever you prefer.
We'll quickly get into the meaning of the title in a sec, but first I want to encourage the listeners to share the podcast with your friends, help us grow this community of listeners, reach more Star Trek fans. We're going to be getting back to discussing all the classic series once the season of Discovery is done, and then discussing whatever new Star Trek comes out. Hopefully Strange New Worlds soon would be nice. I would love to see that one next, but probably not that one next.
I think Lower Decks is probably going to be the next one, I think so. So let's talk about this one. So this is the second to last episode of the season, as Jimmy reminded us, and it's a first part of a two-part finale, and it's directed by Jonathan Frakes, which I think goes toward making this a better episode than others recently. I like the way Frakes directs these episodes, and so I was very encouraged by it.
I don't think as much in terms of direction. I occasionally notice things the director does, but I think very much in terms of what writers do. And from this episode has some flaws, but despite that, from a writing perspective, this is the best episode of the season. The mirror episodes were close, but they were close for the same reason that this is the best, which is it is not reflective. We are not sitting around talking and thinking about our feelings. The thing that pulled the mirror universe episodes down a little bit is they had some of that. You know, especially when we got on Discovery, there was stuff about Adira and Tilly and stuff like that was the wallowy therapeutic Star Trek that I don't like. When we were in the mirror universe, it was straight ahead storytelling. And what I like about this episode is that's the whole episode. It is straight ahead storytelling.
We are not little spots. Yeah. A couple little spots, but yeah.
So let's talk about the title. The title comes from There Is a Tide, comes from the Shakespeare play Julius Caesar. The full quote is, "There's a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures." And I talked to my wife, who is the English professor, about what this means. And what I took from it
seize the opportunity, dude.
Yeah, it's basically seize the day. Sometimes opportunities that when they present themselves, you have to take them at the moment, because if you miss it, it's gone forever. So,
and of course, there's a couple of layers to that in this episode too.
Right, right. The original title that was released, because these ending episodes had different titles when they released the whole season list. The original title was "The Good of the People." What did you guys think that meant? Did you think about that at all?
In terms of this episode, yeah. I mean, it has to do with Osira's proposition to Admiral Vance.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
That's the thing. I see it as well. And again, you could also take it again also for the good of the crew taking back the ship.
Yeah.
All that.
So where we ended last time was Osira had captured Discovery from the outside the nebula where the burn started. By the way, there's no nothing happens. We see nothing from what's going on at the nebula with Saru and Hugh Culber. They're not at all present in this episode on screen. So that
nor is Adira. She's mentioned, and that's about it.
Right, because she's also at the nebula. So we'll presumably find out what's going on with them in the next episode. So we have Osyraa showing up in Discovery, pretending to be attacked by her own ship as she's conning and in charge of Discovery, and trying to get them to open the shield to let her into the Federation headquarters there. And then they make a mention, let's hang a lantern on. We've taken over all of the operating system of the ship except for this old data containing old Earth entertainment, but we don't really care about that. It's taking up hardly any space at all. And
it's just a Buster Keaton movie.
Yes, so we don't. So hang a lantern on that one. We'll be good.
That's an MP3 or a video file, MKV. You don't need to worry about.
Yes, with those old AVIs. Yes. We have Zara back from episode 2, the Far From Home. The former courier played so well. I really like this character. He's suitably villainous. So and now he's working for Osyraa.
He had been left to die on the ice on the living ice planet.
Right. And his hand was damaged in that. So we see that now.
Also Admiral Vance has to make a decision about what's going on and whether or not to let Discovery in. And he has this phrase he says. He deduces that if Osyraa's ship is coming in hot on the heels of Discovery, she must have been waiting for them at the nebula. And the phrase he uses is she must have ambushed them at the nebula. And the phrase he uses is waiting for them like an Altarian spider. And I'm going, okay, here on Earth, spiders set elaborate traps and then wait for their prey to stumble into them. That's what webs are. What exactly do Altarian spiders do that's different that justifies you saying that?
It's the long tradition of Star Trek. I mean, that is a long tradition of Star Trek of making things like a Denebian slime devil, which is somehow different from a regular old slime devil.
Both of those, I mean, I don't mind references to science fiction animals, but look, dude, you're a human. What is it that Altarian spiders do that's different than Earth spiders that would make you say such a thing? I can't imagine what that would be. How do they wait even more?
They sit just outside of sensor range until you beam it, until you jump in, and then they get you.
They build elaborate force field traps. Whatever. So Book and Burnham, meanwhile, are trying to catch up to Discovery by using the same transwarp conduit that presumably Osyraa used to get to the nebula. And now we see why people don't travel in transwarp conduits, because it's full of junk. There's broken
full
ships,
of dead ships
that presumably exploded as part of the burn. That all that stuff, they were destroyed in the burn, and they stayed in the conduit, which I think is interesting. So they have to evade all that as they go through there. They are when they get there, they can't communicate with Starfleet to let them know what's going on. So instead, they crash into the Discovery's shuttle bay as it's passing through the shields.
They do the Kirk maneuver of entering an enemy controlled Federation ship, meaning ram the shuttle bay.
Right.
See Star Trek 5.
Yes.
So here we have a puzzle. I think it's a flaw in the writing. As Michael and Book are coming in, they deduce the kind of plan that Osyraa must be executing, because she's apparently done something like this before, where she got herself into a situation sneakily and then killed a bunch of people. And so they're assuming that what she wants to do is get inside the defense shield around Federation headquarters and then kill everybody. And you're coming in hot. You would expect Osyraa to begin that attack the moment she's through the shield. And it's going to turn, but that's not what we see. Instead, Osyraa gets through the shield, Vance lets her through, and the Discovery has just, been rammed by the shuttle. or by book ship and instead of attacking, Osyraa goes to investigate what's up with this with book ship suddenly boarding us. And I'm going, why isn't she attacking? Now, it's going to turn out that the plan that Book and Burnham deduced is misdirection. That's actually not what she's going to do. But they don't clarify that for so long in this episode that I found it distracting, because it's like, why is Osyraa acting contrary on point after point to her interest? Why is she not attacking? Why does she want to keep everybody alive? You know, why is she issuing these no harm orders? None of this makes any sense given the plan that they've laid out for us. And what the writers are doing is counting on when it's revealed what her plan is. It'll be like, oh, and we'll have this big revelation and it'll all make sense. And it does. But I had to suffer through 15 minutes of why is this bad writing happening on my screen in front of me, given what they set up? And I don't think the payoff was worth it. I would rather leave her plan vague. I'd rather have Book and Burnham saying, I have no idea what she's doing. This doesn't make any sense.
And they didn't earn the benefit of the doubt on the writing because they've had such bad writing previously in the season that you don't go, well, they must have a plan. Well, maybe they,
Well, this is the false suspense where you don't tell the whole story. You know, it's kind of like the murder mysteries where if only someone would tell what they saw, they could have solved it in 5 minutes. But no, we have to suffer through an hour of trying to figure it out until it finally comes out type of deal. You know, similar type of deal.
So we also get a little more of the Osyraa not being just a villain, where we have this human scientist, the greatest scientist in 3 sectors, working for her. He's in a wheelchair, and he's been sent to figure out the spore drive. I want to point out, so the scientist is called Aurelio. The actor who plays the scientist Aurelio is the same actor who played the Klingon Cole, as well as a couple other Klingons in Discovery, so under makeup. He actually needs the wheelchair. He was diagnosed with ALS in 2018 and has been in a wheelchair since 2019. So it was very interesting to see him continuing to act. I mean, I've seen him in stuff for ages. He's done a lot of guest stuff. He was in that old show Jericho about the end of the world years ago. Eric Green? No, that was a character in Jericho. Anyway, so
I'm sorry to hear about the actor's troubles, and I'm glad he's getting work. I did find it not credible that in the 31st century, top scientists are going to be in wheelchairs. You know, I mean, we would have the ability to do all kinds of things to make people ambulatory way before then.
Well, they do kind of hint that that science and technology has degraded since the burn. And so I can see it. And let's be fair. I don't see in the 23rd century somebody like Pike having to be in a wheelchair either, though. So
right. But they give him a job. We actually saw someone else in a wheelchair in Discovery too in the first season. I think they saw in the background. So they've done that before. But you're right.
Yeah, they had someone going down the corridor in a wheelchair in one of the.
So Book gives Burnham, as they're going to go sneak around the ship. Book knows that they only know for sure that Book must be there because it was his ship that crashed. So he's going to send Burnham off to sneak around the ship and do the Die Hard thing. We'll get to why that's a Die Hard thing in a minute.
Rescue Stamets because they can't use the spore drive without him. Right.
And so he gives her a life sign masking device that he says he got off of a Tosk. Remember Tosk from Deep Space Nine? The prey sentient species. So
from the Delta Quadrant or Gamma Quadrant.
That's right. So he gives her a Tosk life sign masking device, which I think is good. We get the I love you scene where they love each other.
And they spend way too much time saying I love you and kissing. It's like, this is the wrong moment for that. Right. Michael Burnham, they hang a lantern on it because Michael says, is this the wrong moment to tell you I love you? Yes, it is. Go.
Yeah. Oh, we're in a big hurry. They're coming into the ship. Oh, but I got to tell you I love you and kiss. And
we got to spend a minute letting them get closer to us.
So Vance figures out pretty early that Osyraa is on Discovery. So that's to his credit. And that was pretty good. I like Vance as a character. I've enjoyed him. So and I continue to enjoy him.
I don't trust him yet.
I don't. But I like the character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Burnham, sneaking through Discovery, runs into one of they call them regulators, that Osira's people, because they're not just Orions. They're all kinds of species, but they're called regulators. And she...
I kind of get the Old West, mob justice, vigilante justice type.
Yeah, sure.
Idea.
She ends up getting stabbed by this guy when she fights with him. And I'm like, come on, she doesn't have to walk around with a stab wound. They've got med kits. But she gets one.
This was the stupidest thing. And the reason, so we have an action sequence where she goes after this guy. And okay, fine, I'm here for an action sequence. But then once she gets him on the ground, she tries to put him in a scissor headlock with her legs. He's already on the ground. What purpose does this serve? If you're going to snap his neck, snap his neck. Don't waste time with this ridiculous scissor thing. What is she hoping to achieve by that? All it does is give him an opportunity to stab her in the leg.
I think she's trying to choke him out, like to make him unconscious, because he comes back later and gets knocked out again. This guy's having a bad day.
Legs are a really inefficient way to choke someone unconscious.
Yes. Well, this is a weird trope that's entered into movies ever since the second Iron Man, where Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow does the whole jump, get her legs around the guy's neck, and then flip him around thing. Now all the stunt women are doing this. I don't know what it looks flashy, but it's dumb.
Well, it also does allow for the stabbing her in the leg like immediately. It's does. Like, good job. Yeah. And then she has to use the phaser to seal the wound.
Why don't you just shoot him?
This doesn't look flashy because the guy is not standing up when she does it. The guy's already laying on the ground.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah. It's actually the device she uses is actually the healing device. I forget what they call it, the flesh knitting thing. But it's kind of cool that they have now all this stuff is contained in a little device that materializes it in your hand instead of having to wear it on a Velcro. Yeah, mm-hmm. I do like that. So this is where I had the same question you did, Jimmy. Why would Osira capture Discovery and immediately attack Starfleet headquarters? Why wouldn't she take some time to go figure out the spore drive independently of it, like before you go attack? Like, I've got Discovery. Mm-hmm. Let's go over here to this little out of the way system, spend a couple months figuring out how this works, and then we'll go take it, then install it on some ships, and then jump right inside the distortion zone, whatever, and then take over. So we find out why, but it did seem a bit weird at this point.
Yeah, so we've got multiple things going on. Osira is talking to Vance on the phone, and she says, I'm here to negotiate, and I'm not here to attack. And as a gesture of goodwill, I'm releasing all of the crew except the bridge crew. I'm keeping them because I need leverage. And it's like, you've got this ship. That's all the leverage you need. You can release the bridge crew too, and then they won't be on your ship and able to stage a takeover attempt, which of course is what they do. So this is bad thinking on Osira's part and the writer's part. In any event, the bridge crew is laying a trap to retake the Discovery. And it's kind of neat to see them doing that. They're using Morse code. They're tapping on bulkheads with their fingers in Morse code to kind of fake out the guards around them and make them think they're planning something they're not. And then they spring what they're actually planning. But the really interesting thing, and it's like, okay, so here's the obligatory action. Let's retake the ship thing. But where the episode suddenly becomes way more interesting is when Osira and Vance meet face to face, and they've got a holographic lie detector guy there. And Osira says, we want to join the Federation. this is what's going to be best for everybody. The Federation is in severe trouble. We're in severe trouble, but we're in trouble in ways that we can actually help each other. And for the good of the people of the galaxy, it would be better if we united. So the Emerald Chain and the Federation should merge. And all of a sudden, and she's serious. This is not a ruse. The lie detector guy confirms this is absolutely true.
I like the use of the lie detector hologram here because it clearly keeps the audience from having to wonder, is she lying? It really eliminates that whole possibility, and now we can believe her. It's a really good device that they've added here. So I did like that. Very good. And she does say, like, Vance has the obvious question, why? Why do you need the Federation? And she says, because the Federation is still a symbol of hope.
And we need you for, I mean, we're running a mercantile empire, but we could make even more money if people liked us. And you with your moral principles, people like that. And so if we can arrange a merger, then we can get people to like us too. And that's better for business if your customers like you rather than fear and hate you.
She does have the perfect tagline for the new corporation. You're a chain of planets and we're a federation of mercantile exchanges. It's like you know how you mix and match, you know, she's clearly thought this out. She had that line at the ready. So back on the ship, Stamets and Aurelio are kind of verbally sparring over whether he's going to reveal the secrets of the spore drive.
And specifically, Stamets is talking about family as a gambit to humanize himself in Aurelio's eyes so that Aurelio will have trouble just torturing the information out of him. And he's trying to turn Aurelio against Osira.
He recognizes that Aurelio is in a parental relationship with an Orion, and he must have kids because of some jewelry that he's wearing. Stamets is now claiming to be Adira's father, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, they've just said it explicitly. He's been acting that way for episodes.
Yeah. So now apparently he's her father. Burnham is tracked down into a Jeffries tube and cornered. Before we leave Aurelio for a second, though, so the strategy that Stamets is doing, I mean, it doesn't have a great chance of success if in real life, but it's actually a good strategy. If someone is ever holding you hostage, you want to humanize yourself. You want to get them to think of you like them. Oh, you're a family man? I'm a family man, too. You have people who care about you. I have people who care about me. It's going to make it harder for them to do things to you that are very unpleasant if they think, oh, he's just like me. So this is a sound strategy. Also, though, Aurelio is referred to as an invigilator. Yeah.
And I'm going, really? Don't you mean investigator? Because an invigilator is like a test proctor. It's a person who watches people taking tests to make sure they don't cheat. His job, as the name would suggest, is to be vigilant while someone is doing something.
Oh, not invigorate things, which was what I thought. He's an invigorator. No, he's an invigilator. So I was going to mention that Burnham next is that she's tracked down into a Jeffries tube where she's cornered, and she ends up faking a fire, which vents the tubes to space. Which is that if you're going to design a fire suppression system, which is better? Venting the oxygen and everything, including everyone in the tubes, or maybe just spraying something that puts out a fire, or maybe erecting a little force shield around the fire that suppresses it. I'm thinking this is a bad idea.
I wondered about that too. Also, speaking of bad ideas, Michael brought this on herself because she's got the life sign masking thing. Why would she then take a communicator from the guy that she has headlocked? Because they can trace her through the communicator. That's not a life sign. That's not going to get masked.
In the 20th century, we have Find My Phone. The 21st century. So,
and you would think that they would have been explained to them that no, they didn't have. Well, they could find, they had the old style communicators, the flip phone communicators. They could find where those were at. And then when they were given their new fancy, comm badge / tricorders. Oh, by the way, we can also tell where this is at. So she thinks she's been able to figure it out.
As far back as the 24th century. Where is Mr. Data? Well, his comm badge is in his quarters.
Yes. By the way, I skipped mentioning this earlier. Burnham does send a Mayday message to her mother, sort of we're in trouble, but also bye, I may not see you again. And they kind of leave it there. So I'm guessing.
Yeah, so guess what Romulan faction of nuns is going to show up next episode?
Hey, nuns showing up to save the day. I'll take it. Warrior nuns saving the day. That's probably going to be.
Also, Aurelio plans Stamets says that the spore drive depends on him because the tardigrade species is extinct. But Aurelio says you've got its DNA in you and we can extract that and grow new tardigrade cells.
Right. So back to Burnham in the tube. She vents it to space. The regulator is holding onto her legs and gets sucked out with her boots. And I'm thinking, why not just shoot her with the phaser you were just using to shoot the thing? Like, why are you holding on instead of just shoot her and stun her and let her get sucked out into space or whatever, if that's your plan?
Because it's more dramatic. It's just shoot her.
Then she has to run around barefoot like Bruce Willis in Die Hard. That was my Die Hard reference. Crawling around through ventilation shafts. Also, they get sucked out without grabbing on to the things around them. That's all they are. It was a bad design. So bad on you, Frakes, for that one.
No. Frakes is following the script. This is in the script.
Well, that's true.
You got to blame the writers.
Okay, I'll blame the writers. Sorry, John. So we have this conversation, this interesting interlude, this conversation between Vance and Osira. I'm not sure what its purpose was in the script about the apple, replicated apples. Because
I think that was just to fill time.
And it's kind of funny because like in the 30th century, everyone knows how replication works. You're reusing the raw materials that are on board this ship. You don't necessarily, go out and get new raw materials every time you make food, right?
I think it's also kind of showing how disconnected the Federation headquarters / Starfleet headquarters is from the rest of the universe.
Right. Well, Vance says he's never had a real apple.
Yeah, whereas Osira notices immediately, oh, this doesn't taste like a real one. So there are advantages that people in the Emerald Chain have that people in the Federation don't. But it's still largely running time padding and getting another cuss word on the air.
Right.
When Vance describes what the replicated materials are actually made from. But the discussion they then proceed to have is much more interesting. They bring back in Mr. Lie Detector for this. And Osira says, we need you to validate our culture as ethical. And he's like, how can I do that? And she's saying, well, by admitting that capitalism is already happening in the Federation. Have you checked in with Deep Space 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lately? They've been a customer of ours for centuries. And I'm going, okay, yeah, well, capitalism is ethical anyway. But he says, but you've got slavery. And she says, we're going to outlaw that. And I'm on board with outlawing it, and we have other business practices that you're going to object to, but we have a plan to walk those back in stages over a period of, I think she said 15 years. And you know as well as I that if we tried to do it faster, it would be an invitation for chaos. So we've got a responsible plan here. We're going to get to where we need to be in order to have this merger with the Federation. So you can say in good conscience that we're ethical. And at that point we will be, and that'll be better for you. And it'll be better for us. And I'm loving this. This is great. This is really nice to not have her portrayed as just a cardboard villain.
Right.
But
until she becomes one.
Right. There is an interlude here where Aurelio and Stamets, where Stamets is meanwhile, and this is I think important to what follows. Stamets is trying to let Aurelio know Osira is not the good guy you think she is. Here are examples just of the things that I've encountered so far where she's done horrible, evil things, and therefore you should not be supporting her. It's a classic undermining the ally sort of idea.
Well, it was interesting too, because he turns Aurelio was proud of that pesticide for Quajan, and oh yeah, that was a wonderful thing. Did you know that she forced them to basically genocide a entire species off her planet because of it?
A non-sentient species.
Non-sentient, yeah, but wipe out a species from this planet for that? No, and he didn't. He had no idea.
I like in this exchange, so Aurelio gives Stamets pushback by pointing to good things that Osyra has done and saying she's more than what she appears. And Stamets, once he hears the good things that Osyra has done, is willing to grant that. He's willing to say, okay, I'll buy. She's more than she appears, but she's also exactly what she appears. That doesn't take away from the really horrible things she's done.
And then, meanwhile, Burnham rescues Stamets. She gets in there and she knocks out Aurelio and the guards.
Him.
Yep. And Stamets,
also the rest of the crew has escaped as well, and they have a really good gambit. They can't mask all of our life signs, so what they do is they reach into the ship's database and pump up all of the life signs of everybody who's been on the ship in the last number of months. So suddenly the people on the bridge are looking at thousands of life signs from where everybody has been over the last number of months. And I thought this was really clever. I liked this. And they don't know which ones are real and which ones are data ghosts.
Yep. So Burnham rescues Stamets, and Stamets immediately wants to jump back to the nebula because we have that ticking clock for Hugh and Saru, and now he realizes Adira is here too. And Burnham,
he goes crazy.
Yes.
He goes absolutely crazy, and he's like going, my whole life is in that nebula, and he's losing it. And this is a great scene for Michael because she neck pinches him to get him under control again, and then she jettisons him in like this escape pod out of the ship, so he cannot be used to jump it. And she's making the hard decision for once and sticking with it and not letting her emotions affect her. And I really appreciate this. I like this a lot.
This is one of the few times where they don't waste. She doesn't waste time. She's trying to get him off the ship. She's trying to get him to be safe. And he's immediately wanting to jump into the spore thing. And she finally gets a hold of him and just like, I'm done with you.
Right. There's no
knocks him out.
Emotional talk down in therapy session or anything like that. Like you said to me earlier, this is cut to the chase, toss him in the thing and blow a hole in the side of the ship and throw him out, which is, I think is great.
I was really irritated though with Stamets at this point, because when he comes to in this escape pod thing, the escape bubble, he goes, we came to the future for you. It's like, no, you came to the future to protect the spore data. Burnham happened to be the person leading you, but you didn't come to the future for her.
I think they my read on that event was that they could have let Discovery go through by itself, and they chose to go through to be with Michael, which I always thought was ridiculous. But I do like the fact that, okay, given that we've all done this ridiculous thing for you, I like a man in a moment of vulnerability throwing it in her face.
Right. And her being able to say, despite that, I can't let you guilt me. The right thing to do is the right thing to do. And getting him off the ship.
Yeah. Oh, also callback to original series. The way she blows a hole in the ship is she sets a phaser in a window on detonate and uses the phaser as a grenade.
Yep. That was good. So back to Vance and Osyra. Vance says, hey, the armistice, I've read through it. I think it's a great idea. One problem, though, the face of the chain in the armistice, the leader of this merge, presumably there's going to be two leaders, a Federation president and someone from the chain, but the person from the chain cannot be you, Osyra. And in fact, it has to be someone independent of you who will prosecute you for your crimes. And she's baffled. Yeah, she's baffled. And I'm thinking about this.
Well,
I'm wondering.
She's on board with part of it. She knows it can't be her. And he says, and it can't just be a puppet for you. And she says it won't be. And Mr. Lie Detector says that is not true.
Yeah.
So she recognizes part of this, and probably he could have gotten her to agree to someone truly independent. But what was the deal breaker for her was, I've got to be prosecuted. Now, if the 31st Century Federation is anything like the 24th Century Federation, that means you're going to spend a couple of years in a tropical resort.
Right.
But you know, I don't know what the 31st Century Federation detention facilities are like, but that's what we've seen, and we're not given any reason to suspect it's different. So personally, I wouldn't be too afraid of that.
I wonder, is this a bit of cancel culture kind of creeping into Star Trek's worldview? Let me throw it out there for you.
Yeah, how so?
Because so she says, you're stuck in the past. I'm offering a roadmap to the future. And you could say this is similar to historical instances on Earth where we've had countries where we've had an old regime overthrown. And in order to move forward, we have to reconcile with those who were in the past. And instead of having hunting people down, we've had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and we move on. And he says the past is the only light with which we can see the future. In other words, there's no really a sense of a redemption for her.
They're both sloganeering. I mean, I think it's a judgment call, because if you think about Earth situations where things like this have happened, I mean, there's a whole spectrum from the leaders of the former evil regime must die. So that's what happened to Ceausescu, for example. Or they are going to be tried and put away forever if they don't kill themselves first, which is what happened to Hitler. And actually, he would have been executed. He wouldn't have been put away forever. Others at the Nuremberg trials were executed. But then you have other situations like South Africa, where F.W. de Klerk was not killed, but he also wasn't in power anymore. And so I think that there's a judgment that has to be made. What's possible and what is for the good of the people in this situation? Do we let this person live? Do we not let them live? If we do let them live, what kind of price do they have to pay? Or sometimes maybe they don't have to pay a price because we can't get them on board other ways. And this really will be for the betterment of the people. You know, if we let this one guilty person off, we can achieve something much better for everybody in society. And, you know, if that can be a logical choice too.
Yeah, we don't know what the punishment, like you said, Don, we don't know what the punishment for Osira would have been. You know, she could have got the Martha Stewart treatment, which is you go to a prison resort for a few years and live her life in comfortable retirement. We don't know.
Or come back and resume her business dealings. She could run her business dealings from the tropical resort that Tom Paris was in.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is Vance lets her walk away from this based on this, though. You know, what is for the good of the people? Is it better for the people that one guilty person walk away and then a war continues between the Emerald Chain and the Federation, or that one guilty person, you hold her accountable? No, what I'm trying to say is either you hold out for holding her accountable, but then this war happens, or you kind of let it go and you have peace.
I think part of the problem is we don't know enough about what Osira has done in the past and whether she's really done. I mean, if she genocided sentient species, okay, I'm with she needs to be prosecuted. But if she hasn't, if her crimes are of a lesser order, if she's the equivalent of a mobster, and okay, she's killed some people, but we can really bring the galaxy out of this conflicted situation, I could see cutting a deal with a mobster. You know, if it
get her on tax evasion instead of murder.
Do Capone.
Yeah.
So I, at this point, I think that the writers have justified Vance's position on this. I think that I would say, based on what I know as a viewer, I would let Osira off with just she can't be the face of the chain, and the real face of the chain cannot be her puppet.
Right.
And she was hinting that it would be that the person who would be that position would be a top scientist, so it would be Aurelio. who we already know has that connection to her.
In fact, frankly, I might even be willing to let her off of, okay, he can be your puppet. It just, the face can't be you.
And he does say the burn has obscured moral clarity, and so we have to fight for it, which is interesting. So he's still hinting at what has happened in the Federation over the past century has been really bad. The Federation has not lived up to its ideals. We need to fight for moral clarity. He then says that he sees the Orion people as good, and he wants them to be as good as they can be, which is also another interesting. So we're not painting all Orions as bad guys, which I'm glad we're not doing that sort of thing. But Osira stomps off, goes back to Discovery. Rin, remember the Andorian with the antenna had been cut off, who had been helping the bridge crew escape. He's been captured, and so
has Book.
And Book, right. And she wants information about how to find the bridge crew. He refuses to give it to her.
She then orders Aurelio to pull the information out of him. And
Zara, I think it was.
Zara, yeah. Also, so we have this situation where she's got the two of them on the bridge. She's got Ren, the Andorian, and Book on the bridge. And she is willing at a certain point to kill Ren. And this is all playing out in front of Aurelio. And here's where I think Frakes' directing may be a little heavy-handed, because he's so focusing on showing us this is all playing out in front of Aurelio, because this is what's going to undermine Aurelio's confidence in Osira. And I think we could have done with a few less prominently placed Aurelio shots as this is happening. But Osira is going to kill Ren, and Book intervenes and says, look, I know where you can get enough dilithium to end the dilithium shortage. And she's going, oh, duh, in the nebula. And he's going, yeah, but nebulas are big places. I can give you the exact coordinates if you let Ren live. And she's go, oh, that's very interesting. Zap, she disintegrates Aurelio. She disintegrates Ren. So exit character stage phaser fire. And this is unnecessary. It's unnecessary for her to do this. There's no obvious reason other than to turn Aurelio against her. In fact, she tried earlier to get Aurelio off the bridge. She said, you can go. And he's like, no, I want to stay. And she's like, well, okay, I know you're not used to seeing difficult things, but sometimes they're necessary, and this is how we make progress. And so they've really pointed out this is what's going to turn Aurelio against her in the next episode.
Yeah, we see it in the acting of the actor too, just very clearly on his face. And that was a big mistake by Book, telling you this and expecting her to act differently. This
is where she becomes the cardboard villain, or
we do have another case where Burnham starts fighting with the regulators, including the same one she choked earlier. She has to choke him again. I just thought that was funny. This guy's going to have brain damage after this episode. And then the bridge crew shows up, and
not shows up so much as they suddenly decide to do something. It's like, guys, you escaped 20 minutes ago in runtime. Where have you been, and what have you been doing all of this time? But they come to an armory and they start taking the weapons until he's like, grab as many weapons as you can. And then the dots show up.
Yay, the dots!
Yeah. And they play a little clip of Buster Keaton, and it's like, oh, you're the Sphere Data. Are you here to help us?
Yep. Remember what I said last time? I want to see more of the dots. I want to see them as characters. Yes, we're going to have dots next episode. I don't know.
You just like them because they're Star Trek version of the Star Wars droids. So
I have a soft spot for droids. So, and they have, right, as you mentioned, they have the Sphere Data in them. Oh, and by the way, the Burnham has been recaptured by Zara. So she's been captured by Zara, so that they're going to have to obviously free her. And the dots do speak in Zora's voice. Remember Zora from Calypso, the short track. So with very clearly the same AI. And that's where we end. It's the cliffhanger for next time. We're going to have to resolve everything, including Saru and Culber in the nebula. All that's going to have to be resolved in the next episode.
Yeah. So, like I said, I thought this was, from a writing perspective, even though it had flaws, this was the best episode of the season because it's just straightforward storytelling. There's not, wallowing in therapy and we're all together and stuff like that. Unfortunately, next episode's not going to be as good because in the preview, we have Saru with Culber and Adira saying, "Whatever happens, we are together." And it's like, oh, please. Yeah. We've had enough togetherness talk in this season already. What is it with the current crop of writers with all this therapeutic junk? It feels like there's been a generational shift and the newer writers are much more insecure and in need of therapy themselves. And so, they say, write what you know. So they're giving us a bunch of therapeutic junk because they are all in need of therapy.
I wonder, is Michael Chabon still the showrunner on this one? I forget if that's changed in this, and I can't quickly find it, but I wonder if there's been a shift in the writer's room from last season to this one in a substantial way like that, where showrunners or whatever have changed. But you're right, like you can't imagine Kirk or Picard or like any of the, never mind, Deep Space Nine, Cisco, whatever happens, we're together. Like, no, that's not going to happen. They're not going to say that.
The closest you get to that is like yesterday's Enterprise, where Picard stands before they're getting ready to, go after Klingons. Let's make sure history remembers the name Enterprise. In other words, let's go out with a bang,
But that's not like togetherness talk. That's just
no. That's what I'm saying, though. It's very different, different.
But I think
mindset.
I think it's more than just Star Trek, and it's more than just this writer's room. It's, if you look at Doctor Who, Chris Chibnall's 3 companions he created. Okay, there's a cancer survivor, there's a guy who can't control his muscles properly, and there's a woman who has mental health issues. And we're meant to feel sympathy for them all because they have these vulnerabilities, and they get to overcome them and stuff. What is with the therapy fiction that is out there now, where it's like in the New Year's Day special of Doctor Who? Yaz turns to Captain Jack and says, "Are you like really insecure because you seem to need a lot of praise?" Right.
That actually kind of answers your objections. I mean, it's almost kind of a poking at that. I mean, I'm not saying that's not a real objection, but I'm saying it kind of pokes at that idea of we always have to be insecure and have this praise,
Yeah, and it's the tell don't show about how great everybody is. And that it's part of that. Let's wallow in our emotions and feel therapeutic. And it's just infested. It seems like the current generation of writers who I assume are younger. And that's why it's appearing in multiple different forms across science fiction. And I, for one, am sick of it. I want to see strong characters doing things. I don't want to be told how great they are. I don't want constant togetherness talk. I don't want constant mutual praise. That's just a sign of insecurity on the part of the characters if they need that. And that tells me something about the writers, that they're insecure too and don't know how to do stories another way.
And where you can find that is The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
I would say actually outside of the movies, the recent movies, the Star Wars universe as a whole, having just watched Clone Wars and Rebels, both, you don't see a lot of that. I mean, there's some, but it actually fits within the circumstances they're in.
Right. You're right. It's not you have to eliminate it completely, but it has to be. You just can't wallow in it, like Jimmy's saying. And Star Wars, the stuff that Dave Filoni is shepherding along, including Mandalorian, doesn't do that, and it's been refreshing to see over there. But I agree, Jimmy. We need to do less of this emotional wallowing that we're doing in all kinds of stuff. It's frustrating and so, on a high note, we'll end this episode. But to reiterate, I enjoyed this. I like this episode. There was a lot to like about it, and I like the action. So final notes, Father Cory. Anything left to say?
Just one thought I did have while we're talking is we're talking how Osira said she needed to keep some of the crew as leverage, and I thought about it as I was thinking about it. It's like, Vance has already shown his willingness that he's going to blast Discovery out of the sky. As soon as he realizes she's got the ship, he's already told, the other starships in dock there, go weapons hot, blast it. And so, because they've got all the data on the Spear drive, they've got all the specs on it. The only thing they're missing is Stamets.
Right.
You know, he's the only weak link in that whole thing. So that actually did kind of make sense from Osira's character. She realizes, like, no, if he thinks that I'm going to get twitchy with the fire button, I'm gone. The ship is gone. He's not going to think twice about it.
Jimmy?
Nope.
Okay. So before we finish things out, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Star Trek, including Cole S., Laura F., Nicholas D., Christopher D., and Matthew D. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. And now's a great time to become a StarQuest patron, because thanks to a generous gift from a StarQuest supporter, when you start a new Patreon monthly pledge at sqpn.com/give, the first 3 months will be matched by an equal amount from our donor. So if, for example, you become a new patron at $10 a month, after 3 months, our donor will give $30 to StarQuest to support all our shows, including this one, which makes your gift go even further. So if you've been thinking of becoming a StarQuest patron, now's the time. Visit sqpn.com/give today. So that's it from us. If we'd love to hear from you what you thought of There Is a Tide, and let us know what you think of what we had to say. Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, or our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time, and we'll discuss the blessedly final episode of the season, the last one, called Outside. Until then, Father Cory Stika, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest, and remember, I'm at your service, Captain. Shall we take back the ship?